sprayable.
The U.S. has come to Ukraine's rescue once again as fighter jets are given the green light to support the war. Western fighter jets could finally be sent to Ukraine after America gave transfer requests the green light, but it will be months before they see any action. Denmark and Holland will be able to donate F-16 warplanes to Kyiv once Ukrainian pilots have completed their training, the U.S. said. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the approval will allow Ukraine to take full advantage of its new capabilities. Kyiv has been calling for Western allies to give them fighter jets to aid their counteroffensive in the south and east of a war-torn nation. It will allow them to provide Western-made tanks, such as the British Challenger 2 and American Bradley fighting vehicles, with vital air cover. Ukraine has been relying on aging Soviet-built warplanes to take on Russia's more advanced fighter jets. But the Washington Post reported last week that an initial group of 6 pilots was not expected to complete F-16's training by the next summer. And this week Ukraine Air Force spokesperson Yuri Anat said, "It's already obvious we won't be able to defend Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets during this autumn and winter." America's intervention was applauded by Holland and Denmark yesterday. Dutch Foreign Minister Wop Hoekstra said, "We welcome Washington's decision to pave the way for sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. Now, we will further discuss the subject with our European partners." Danish Defense Minister Jacob Ellemann-Jensen said, "The government has said several times that a donation is a natural next step after training. We are discussing it with close allies." A coalition of 11 countries, including the U.S., the U.K., the Netherlands and Denmark, has pledged to train Ukraine's pilots on F-16s. Secretary of State Antony Blinken sent letters to his Danish and Dutch counterparts assuring them that the requests would be approved. Mr. Blinken said, "I am writing to express the United States' full support for both the transfer of F-16 fighter aircraft to Ukraine and for the training of Ukrainian pilots by qualified F-16 instructors. It remains critical Ukraine is able to defend itself against ongoing Russian aggression and violation of its sovereignty." He said the approval of the requests would allow Ukraine to take full advantage of its new capabilities as soon as the first set of pilots completes their training. The Russian and Ukrainian armies are engaged in a cat-and-mouse game along the 800-mile front as each side tries to force the other into deploying valuable reserves and therefore opening new gaps in the crystallizing contact line. In the annals of world military history, this has happened quite often when you have stalemates along an extended border, Mark Voyager told Newsweek. He is a former special advisor for Russian and Eurasian affairs to then-commander of U.S. Army Europe General Ben Hodges. As Ukraine seeks an elusive breakthrough in southern Zaporizhia and southeastern Donetsk oblasts, Russian forces are on the offensive in northeastern Luhansk and Kharkiv. Moscow's troops are hoping to draw attention and resources away from Kyiv's long-awaited counteroffensive effort in the south, and potentially even push through Ukrainian lines and recapture the city of Kupiansk. There, Ukraine has been forced to deploy valuable reserves, despite its ongoing efforts to achieve a breakthrough in the south. Serhiy Cherevity, a spokesperson for the Eastern Group of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, said on Tuesday that additional forces had been deployed to the Kupiansk area. Immediate clear orders were given to build a defense in depth, Cherevity said during a telethon as quoted by Ukrainian online newspaper Strana.ua. Our firing positions were toughened, certain methodological recommendations were provided, reserves were transferred. Therefore, this made it impossible for the enemy to move. Russian commanders are facing a similar dilemma. Moscow is reported to have redeployed some of its most experienced and well-equipped units to the Zaporizhia and Donetsk regions in recent months, intending them to blunt the expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. Kyiv's approach has been to launch multiple probing efforts augmented by constant erosion of Russian artillery and supply resources behind the lines. Exactly where the hammer would fall was unclear. It now appears that Ukraine has committed significant assault units and reserves to local breakthroughs around the Zaporizhia settlement of Robotyne and the Donetsk village of Uruzhain. This has forced Russian commanders to spread their troops along the line. Continued Ukrainian amphibious raids across the Dnieper River, called the Dnipro in Ukrainian, also mean Russian troops must hold position on the eastern banks of the river, even though the area was badly flooded and considered impassable after the destruction of the Novokakhovka Dam in June. Anecdotal frontline dispatches speak of strained resources. Russian troops responding to a recent Ukrainian operation across the Dnieper noted how even a small raid opened up a significant gap in their defenses on the east bank. And one Moscow-aligned unit forced out of Uruzhain this week spoke of promised reinforcements that never arrived. Newsweek has contacted the Russian Defense Ministry by email to request comment. New diversionary and probing efforts are to be expected as Moscow and Kyiv both look to break a relatively static front line, which threatens to harden further as winter approaches. If they cannot advance against their main target or main area of the initial objective, they will probe elsewhere, Voyager, who is a non-resident senior fellow at Center for European Analysis and professor at American University of Kyiv, said. This is true of both sides, Voyager added. That's quite logical. That was to be expected short of a decisive breakthrough, which I think it was overly optimistic on the part of the West to expect such a breakthrough, he said of Ukrainian efforts to advance. It will make sense for the Russian command to try to distract the Ukrainians in a different direction, so they can alleviate this pressure on their forces in the south, Voyager added. Distracting or pinning one's enemy has great battlefield value, Pavel Luzin told Newsweek. He is a Russian political analyst and visiting scholar at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Medford, Massachusetts. The main benefit is that the enemy is losing flexibility and mobility, losing the room for maneuvering, he said. Russian doctrine, Luzin added, dictates not to find yourself in such a situation, and not to lose the strategic initiative. That's why the commanders are trying to restore the initiative by tactical offensive actions and by using aviation, missiles and loitering munitions like Shahid drones.